High volume hiring normally means trade-offs. Speed versus quality, technology versus the personal touch. But what if AI meant you didn't have to choose? Keep listening to find out more. Support for this podcast comes from Vonk. Vonk is transforming recruitment advertising with a results-driven platform that helps employers attract, vet, and shortlist top-quality candidates efficiently. Trusted by global leaders like Danone, Bayer, Randstad, and PwC, Vonk combines AI-powered technology, deep ATS integrations, and recruitment expertise to streamline hiring workflows, enhance employer branding, and deliver measurable outcomes. With Vonk, you can streamline your recruitment process, improve ROI, and build diverse, high-performing teams. Hire smarter, faster.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi there, welcome to episode 794 of Recruiting Future with me, Matt Alder. When organisations hire thousands of frontline workers, delivering a personal candidate experience becomes almost impossible. Recruiters spend all of their time answering calls, responding to messages, and running through the same screening questions over and over. There's very little time left for the conversations that actually matter. Meanwhile, candidates want speed, flexibility, and a process that respects their time, including outside of business hours. So, how can AI solve this? My guests this week are Jeroen Clerk, People Operations Leader at Picnic, and Bill Fisher, CTO at Vonk. In our conversation, which was recorded live at HR Tech Europe, they share what happened when Picnic gave candidates the choice of a human or an AI screening call, the surprising feedback they received, and how they built 10 years of recruiting knowledge into an AI agent that frees up time for their recruiters to have more valuable conversations. Hi, Jeroen. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the podcast. Absolute pleasure to be talking to both of you. We're here on the expo floor at HR Tech Europe on the Vonk stand. Let's just start off with, can you just introduce yourselves and tell everyone what you do?
So my name is Jeroen. I'm in charge of several people domains within Picnic, including high volume recruitment. And currently we are testing AI calls together with Vonk. So therefore also Bill is here.
Hey, Matt. So, I think we're just here to talk a little bit about what we're doing in conversational AI with Picnic. So it's a new product for us. We're really excited about it. And so I run the product and engineering function at Vonk. It's good to be here.
So let's start off by talking about Picnic. So you're on stage later today talking about some of the challenges that you've had and the solutions that you've developed to solve them. Tell us about the main challenge that you're going to be talking about today.
Yes. So we do high volume recruitment, and there's a very interesting paradox because the more automation we add to the process, the more we can be human. And what we do a lot also last year is we speak a lot to our applicants, to our recruiters. We look into our data, and we actually see huge opportunity to bring some automation and technology in to further optimize applicant experiences.
What is it that's kind of special about your applicant experience? What makes it different from other organizations who might do the similar things?
Yes, that's a very good question. So in the past, we had a one-size-fits-all process. Actually, like a lot of companies, they still have it. But if we speak to a lot of applicants, employees, we find out that they all have different expectations of the process. And I think we need to adapt. We need to offer different flows based on the needs of the candidates.
Tell us more about the solution that you put together. So you've looked at technology as a way of solving these kind of issues. Bill, just to bring you in here, what was unique about the solution that Picnic were looking for?
So I think what excited me most about the project was that we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years building a synthetic recruiter. So and using an agentic process that you could just present this AI agent recruiter with any job description, and they could look at it and know, okay, so we're going to do this interview in French. It's a high volume role. These are the requirements for it. But we just would present it with the job description, and the agent would just figure out a way to do it. So we've worked really hard to kind of build these agents that can just, again, you just give it a job description and they would just figure out how to do it. Again, high volume, high skilled, low volume. What was fun about Picnic is that they had many, many years of learnings on best practices on how they wanted to run their screening process. And so what they wanted was for us to build kind of a synthetic Picnic screener. And so we had to take all of those learnings and best practices and knowledge that the recruiters had accrued over the last 10 years and build that into the agent. So when our agent was speaking with the Picnic candidates, they brought all of those best practices into the process.
And let's just zoom in on that for a second here. So what is it about the screening process that's different, or what was it that you absolutely kind of had to maintain through the automation?
Yes. So when an applicant applies, we need to get some data from this applicant to assess if there's a fit. For example, availability, if they live close to the FC, motivation, language skills. There are several examples. That's one case. But also, applicants, when they come to our landing page, have a lot of questions. And nowadays, they were just calling us, which of course costs a lot of time for the recruiter. But we're also only working during business hours, while an agent is 24/7 available. So we start actually doing our first test. And in this test, we took one fulfillment center. It was in Berkel en Rodenrijs in the west of the Netherlands. But what we did there is we offered the applicants the option to choose a screening call with a real recruiter and a screening call with our AI recruiter. And we did around 400 calls. And we found out that around 20% selected the AI call. And 20%, I was already quite surprised because it feels quite a lot, because here on the event, we see a lot about AI and automation, but what is actually the status of adoption of AI right nowadays? So it was a really nice case to just test it. And what's also very interesting in that in those calls, we can also measure the sentiment.
Right.
Is it positive, neutral? And actually we learned that only 1%, so 4 out of 400, had a bit of negative sentiment. Subsequently, we also learned that the recruiter immediately needs to know that negative sentiment so we can give a follow-up call to fix that, of course. But overall, very positive results.
And how about the rollout with the recruiters? How the recruiters kind of respond to the automation? How do you kind of make sure it's adopted and that it works? What did you kind of learn from that kind of implementation?
From a change management perspective, that's, of course, can be quite tough. So first of all, what we did, we speak a lot to them to understand their experiences, their frustrations. And we knew that they felt we are just too busy with answering calls, answering WhatsApp messages. Secondly, when we start designing the new process together with Vonk, we also involve them. So we have a Slack channel together with Vonk, with recruiters, where after every call, they can also share feedback. They see the scorecards of the candidates in the dashboard. And what they also do is that, especially in the first stage of testing, each recruiter would call an applicant that had an AI call to ask for their experiences and also share that feedback with the Vonk team. So we really made the recruiters part of the project. And nowadays, you really like it because they are telling like automation brings a lot to the process because we have way more time for a real conversation, less time pressure, a more diverse job.
And Bill, did this present any particular technical issues with what you were building?
Yes. So for this deployment, we're doing phone screening, which introduces a whole new set of challenges in conversational AI, because the sentiment, we wanted it to be great. So we wanted the applicants to have a really good experience. But when you think about the phone, so sometimes audibility can be difficult. So the pronunciations have to be spot on. We were doing these in Dutch. The large language models that support Dutch do not have as much training data as they exist in other languages. So sometimes the pronunciation would be a smidge off. And so we had to do kind of some reprompting to work around some of that. So like, for example, I think it was like juist and juist, which again, like sounded the same to me. Well, like I meant like two totally different things. And so it took a while to kind of prompt around that. But also phone calls, like life happens when somebody's on a phone, and we needed the AI agent so that if you didn't hear something correctly and maybe answered something that wasn't asked, they would understand the context and re-ask the question. Or if the call got dropped, and then you know that challenge you have in a phone call, like, oh, do I call you back or do you call me back? So you have that, so you need to reconnect But then when the agent picks up the call, they have to know what was discussed before so they don't start from scratch, which, again, all these things sound simple, but in aggregate, they're pretty difficult. Yeah, I think another interesting thing was the location. Because what's important when you're estimating a commute time for an employee to get to a location is also the time of day and the mode of transport. So when we were trying to assess, is this candidate a strong fit from that requirement around location, we had to do a lookup on how would they likely be traveling, what time of day would they be traveling, and what is that commute time at that time on that route. And so we built some tooling around that as well.
I think that's just really interesting detail because at an event like this, you get lots of people standing on stage talking about AI strategy and all this kind of stuff. But without this level of detail, it's just never going to work, is it? So I think that's kind of really a really interesting perspective. Coming back to just talk about the recruiters, because you, as you said, they've kind of got more time, better quality conversations. How do you see the role of recruiters developing as we get sort of more automation appearing in the hiring process?
So we do high volume recruitment and we need to do a lot of pre-screening and answering questions, which is something which can be easily automated. And so currently how our process looks like, an applicant comes on our landing page, they can still apply via form, they can apply via AI call. In the past, we already tested WhatsApp apply, which was also very interesting because you see that the threshold to start interacting with us was way lower compared to the form. And what we do, so we collected a lot of data about this applicant, and then we have a predictive model that gives a likelihood score to an applicant. And that also becomes quite interesting because if you have the perfect applicant, we send them immediately to a location to have an on-site interview, a tour. But if we have any doubt, we can use the AI or the real recruiter to ask a bit more questions, in-depth questions. And I think it's also very important to mention that at the end, the recruiter is on control, but automation, especially on the front line, is supporting the recruiter.
Has it sort of changed the way that you look at all the applications that you get? So I was listening to someone sort of talking earlier and they were talking about similar sort of system and they said that, they were getting 3,000 applications for one particular role in the past. They wouldn't have been able to look at all of them. They'd had to have made some kind of decision, but it kind of allows you to sort of look at everything that comes in now.
Yes, and this is of course a very interesting trade-off, but already in the past, in high volume recruitment for us, applicants' experiences, which means quality of the process and time to hire, which is very short, it's around 7 days, was already top priority. So already every applicant that applied for Picnic had the opportunity to speak with a real recruiter within 1 hour during business hours. So that's already quite unique. So we always made the trade-off to have enough recruiters. So I think it's also more, now we bring in more automation. We can improve applicant experience for a lot of people. We improve the experience of our recruiters and we become way more efficient.
Final couple of questions. What's next? Where are you taking things next? What's the next challenge that you're going to solve?
We just evaluated the first pilot. And in terms of applicant experiences, they were very surprised by already the quality of the AI call. I also spoke to some people and they just said, oh, it's insane how good it actually is, right? But on the other hand, we also see that especially the expectation management is very difficult because people don't know what they can expect from an AI call. So some people said, I had no clue that it was possible to ask a question, right? Or I had no clue that I could have a real conversation. So also expectation management on our end is very important. What we will do next, to answer your question, we will scale the volume of calls in the Netherlands to test more, to measure, to learn, iterate at full speed. That's the highest priority. And we'll also start testing in Germany and later on in France. Because of course it's a different culture. We need to learn about the adoption of AI and if they are ready, if we need to do things differently. And I also feel, and I think Bill agrees there, the only way to find out is start testing and measuring it by combining qualitative and quantitative data.
Just to drill into one thing you said there, because I think it's really, really important, which is about candidate expectations. Because one of the things I see time and time again in the media is people complaining about AI application systems. Oh, it's not here. I want to talk to a human. Computer says no, all these kind of things. But obviously you're getting great feedback from candidates. It's improving the process. How are you managing those expectations? How are you making sure that people are aware that the AI route could be a better route maybe for them in some cases than talking to a human at that first stage?
Yeah, so we discussed that a lot in the last weeks. And first of all, I believe that we should still give people the option. Because my mom, she doesn't like to speak to an AI agent, for sure. Secondly, we measure the sentiment, and if it's negative, we immediately act. And I also believe that if someone is in an AI call and is stuck, they should have immediately the opportunity to speak to a real recruiter. And managing that part, and because at the end, we can talk about efficiency, and it's all about applicant experiences. They should be spot on, best in class, time to hire should be best in class, and then you win this game in high volume recruiting. Because people apply for several jobs. So you immediately need to engage them, you need to act fast. And if there are any negative experiences, we should first of all avoid them. And if it's there, we should act.
Fantastic. And finally, Bill, what's possible in the future with all of this? I know you're kind of very much at the cutting edge. Where do you think things might move in a couple of years' time?
At some point, a person has to speak to a person. So at some point, that has to happen. So I don't see that going away. I think it's where it happens, in the process will change. So I definitely see a world where a candidate will use something like an agent or a claw that'll do the discovery of the jobs, and then might even ask a few questions of an agent on the employer side just to gather a little more information. So maternity cover, childcare, commute, culture, work culture, like those types of questions. So I see that process being handled more in an agentic, world. And then just bring in kind of like a candidate who is qualified for the job, is excited about the job. So with a recruiter has enough information to go like, this is someone that seems very promising, we're very interested into, and then have those people talk. So I think it's kind of that collapsing of all of that work that happens in the middle. So you can just have, three great quality candidates, talking to a recruiter, and you not have to cover bookkeeping or transactional stuff.
Jeroen, Bill, thank you very much for talking to me.
My thanks to Jeroen and Bill. You can follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can search all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com. On that site, you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track on everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.